You're 26, standing at the altar in your wedding dress, waiting for the love of your life, only to get a text that says, "I can't do this." That was me, humiliated, heartbroken, my future shattered in front of everyone. But I didn't disappear. I rebuilt myself and uncovered his web of lies. And when he tried to start over with a new bride, I made sure his sins caught up with him, live, during his wedding. Want to know how I got the ultimate justice? Stick around. This story will leave you speechless. Pause. Screen fades to black. Title card appears with dramatic sound effect. Hey everyone, I'm Emma Riley. I'm 27, living in Boston, and I'm a journalist who's made a name for myself under a pseudonym. But we'll get to that. A year ago, I was just a bride-to-be, dreaming of forever, until the man I loved tore my world apart. Today, I'm sharing a real-life story from my life, a story of betrayal, resilience, and the kind of justice that feels like a long overdue exhale. If you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or had your heart broken, this one's for you. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's dive into a story that might just touch your heart. Ready? Here we go. Transition sound, soft whoosh. I grew up in a cozy Boston suburb where the streets smelled of maple leaves in the fall and neighbors waved from porches. My family was solid, but not fancy. My dad taught high school history. My mom ran a daycare. And I was the dreamer, always scribbling stories in notebooks. By 26, I was a freelance journalist, piecing together articles for local papers, living in a tiny apartment with creaky floors and a coffee maker that never stopped humming. Then I met Daniel Harper. He was everything I thought I wanted. Tall, with a boyish grin that could light up a room, green eyes that seemed to see right through me. He was a financial consultant, always in sharp suits, tossing around terms like portfolio and leverage with a confidence that made you believe he could do anything. We met at a charity gala I was covering for a paper, and he swept me off my feet with witty banter and a glass of wine he swore was better than the cheap stuff. Daniel was charming, the kind of guy who'd leave notes on my fridge or surprise me with flowers just because. We dated for 2 years, and I fell hard. He proposed on a snowy evening by the Charles River, down on one knee, his breath visible in the cold air. "Emma, you're my forever," he said, slipping a ring on my finger. I believed him. My heart felt full, like every dream I'd ever had was coming true. Our wedding was set for a June afternoon in a charming church with stained glass windows and roses lining the aisle. I spent months planning, choosing a dress with lace sleeves, saving for a caterer, inviting every cousin and friend. My mom cried when she saw me in the dress, her hands trembling as she adjusted my veil. Daniel was my partner, my future. I trusted him completely. Pause for emotional weight. But that trust was my mistake. The morning of the wedding, I stood in the bridal suite, my dress heavy with hope, my best friend zipping me up as I laughed nervously. Guests were arriving, their voices echoing through the church. I checked my phone for a silly good luck text from Daniel, like he'd sent during our engagement. Instead, I saw a single message. "Emma, I can't do this. I'm sorry." My heart stopped. The room spun, my hands shaking as I read it again. My best friend, Jess, grabbed the phone, her face paling. What? No, he wouldn't. But he had. I stood there in my white dress, the lace itching my skin, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. Jess ran to find him, but he was gone. No car, no trace, just that text. I had to face the guests. My legs felt like lead as I walked to the altar, my veil catching on the pews. The organ stopped, the crowd's whispers growing louder. I forced the words out, my voice cracking. Daniel's not coming. I'm so sorry. The gasps were deafening. My mom rushed to me, her arms wrapping around me as I sank to the floor, my dress pulling around me like a broken dream. Friends tried to comfort me, but their words blurred into noise. All I could feel was the sting of humiliation, the weight of every eye on me, the whispers that followed me out the door. Poor Emma, left at the altar. The days after were a fog. I hid in my apartment, the curtains drawn, the wedding dress crumpled in a corner. My phone buzzed with pity texts. Are you okay? What happened? But I couldn't answer. I felt like a fool, betrayed by the man I'd loved, humiliated in front of everyone I knew. The local gossip mill churned. Emma's fiancé bailed. She must have done something. I tried to reach Daniel, my hands trembling as I dialed his number. It went to voicemail, his cheerful greeting mocking me. I sent texts, emails, begging for an explanation. Silence. A week later, I heard he'd left town, moved to New York, started over like I'd never existed. The betrayal cut deeper when I learned more. A friend forwarded me a post from Daniel's social media, smirking in a bar, arm around a new woman, captioned, "New Chapter." My stomach twisted, my chest tight with a mix of rage and heartbreak. I'd given him everything, my trust, my future, and he'd thrown it away without a word. The gossip didn't stop. At the grocery store, neighbors stared, their whispers trailing me like smoke. That's the girl who got dumped at the altar. My freelance gigs dried up. Editors didn't want drama tied to their writers. I felt like I was shrinking, my confidence crumbling with every pitying glance. One night, I found a box of Daniel's things in my closet, an old sweater, a watch, a notebook with his scrawled financial plans. I flipped through it, my hands shaking, and saw terms I didn't understand. Offshore accounts, silent partners. A chill ran through me. Something wasn't right. I'd always trusted his consulting work, but now I wondered, what was he hiding? That question became my obsession. I couldn't let his betrayal define me. I wasn't going to be poor Emma forever. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in the dark, I felt a spark of defiance. You don't get to walk away, Daniel, I whispered to myself. Not without answering for this. I didn't want revenge for revenge's sake. I wanted the truth, and I wanted the world to see it. I threw myself into journalism with a new purpose. I'd always been a writer, but now I wanted to uncover truths, not just tell stories. I enrolled in night classes for investigative journalism, my eyes burning from late-night study sessions, my desk piled with textbooks and coffee cups. I started working under a pseudonym, E. Riley, to distance myself from the gossip, to rebuild without the weight of the jilted bride. My first gigs were small, local exposés on shady businesses, corruption in city contracts. I learned to dig, to follow paper trails, to ask questions that made people squirm. Every story felt like a step toward reclaiming my power, my voice. By 27, I was freelancing for major outlets, my byline E. Riley earning respect in newsrooms. But Daniel was always in the back of my mind, his betrayal a fire that kept me going. I started investigating him quietly. I used my skills, public records, old contacts, late-night searches on sketchy financial forums. What I found shocked me. Daniel wasn't just a cheater. He was a con man, fake investment schemes, promising clients returns that never materialized, affairs with multiple women, each thinking they were his forever. Manipulative emails, twisting words to dodge accountability. I saved everything. Bank records, texts, screenshots. My laptop a vault of his sins. Each discovery was a gut punch, but it also fueled me. I wasn't the naive bride anymore. I was a journalist, and I had the tools to expose him. I just needed the right moment. And then I heard the news. Daniel was getting married again, this time to a wealthy heiress named Victoria Langston. The wedding was a spectacle, set in a New York ballroom, splashed across society pages with hundreds of guests and live-streamed coverage. I read the announcement, my hands trembling, my coffee mug cold on my desk. This was my moment. I didn't want to just hurt him. I wanted the world to see who he really was. At the height of his triumph, I contacted an investigative media outlet I'd worked with before, known for hard-hitting exposés. Using my pseudonym, I offered to fund a story on Daniel Harper, anonymously, of course. I sent them my evidence, financial records showing his scams, texts proving his affairs, interviews with former clients who'd lost everything. This needs to be big, I told the editor over a secure call, my voice steady, but my heart racing. Publish it during his wedding. Let the world see. The editor didn't ask my name, just said, "This is explosive. We're in." For weeks, I worked with their team, refining the story, timing it to the minute. I barely slept, my apartment lit by the glow of my laptop, papers scattered across my couch. I'd pace the floor, my bare feet cold on the hardwood, imagining Daniel's face when the truth hit. Would he panic? Deny it? Run again? The night before the wedding, I flew to New York, my hands shaking as I packed a simple black dress. I wasn't invited, but I bought a ticket to the public live stream event, a charity gala tied to the wedding. I wanted to be there, in the crowd, when the story broke. Not to gloat, but to witness justice. Pause. Music builds. The wedding was set for a Saturday evening in a ballroom dripping with crystal chandeliers and roses. I stood at the back, my dress blending into the crowd, my heart pounding as I watched Daniel at the altar, smirking in his tuxedo, Victoria radiant beside him. The cameras rolled, streaming to thousands. I clutched my phone, waiting. Pause. Music builds. The ceremony began, the officiant's voice echoing through the ballroom. I stood in the shadows, my hands clammy, my breath shallow. Then it happened. A murmur rippled through the crowd, soft at first, like a distant wave. Guests glanced at their phones, their faces shifting from confusion to shock. Whispers grew louder, heads turning, fingers pointing at screens. The exposé had dropped. Headlines flashed, groom's dark secrets, fraud, affairs, and lies. Financial records, text screenshots, victim testimonies. Everything I'd uncovered, laid bare for the world. The live stream chat exploded, comments scrolling faster than I could read. Daniel's face went pale, his hands frozen mid-vow. Victoria's smile faltered, her eyes darting to the crowd. The officiant paused, sensing the shift. A guest near me gasped, "Is this about the groom?" Another whispered, "He's a fraud." I watched Daniel's eyes scan the room, wild with panic. He fumbled with his phone, his fingers shaking as he saw the headlines. Victoria stepped back, her bouquet trembling, her face a mix of confusion and betrayal. The cameras caught it all, the groom's unraveling, the bride's shock, the guests' murmurs turning into a roar. I stood quietly at the back, my black dress blending into the chaos, a faint smile on my lips. I didn't need to say a word. The truth was my voice, and it was louder than any speech I could have given. As the ceremony dissolved into chaos, Daniel's parents rushed to the altar, their faces red with anger. A reporter approached him, mic in hand. "Mr. Harper, care to comment on the allegations?" Daniel stammered, "This is a misunderstanding." But his voice cracked, his charm gone. I slipped out before anyone noticed me, my heels silent on the carpet, the cool night air hitting my face as I stepped outside. My phone buzzed with notifications. Friends, colleagues, strangers sharing the story. "E. Riley strikes again," one editor texted. I smiled, my heart light for the first time in a year. The next day, the story was everywhere. News channels, social media, even international outlets. Daniel's clients dropped him, his investors pulled out, and Victoria called off the engagement. I didn't need to see his face to know he was ruined. I'd already won. This wasn't about destroying Daniel. It was about reclaiming my truth, my power, my life. Being left at the altar broke me, but it also showed me what I'm capable of. I didn't need to scream or fight to get justice. I used my skills, my voice, to let the truth do the talking. That year taught me something. Betrayal doesn't define you unless you let it. I rebuilt myself, not just for me, but for every person who's been lied to, manipulated, or left behind. My work as E. Riley continues. Exposing truths, holding the powerful accountable, and every story I write feels like a nod to the girl in the wedding dress, who refused to stay broken. So, what's the lesson? The best revenge isn't always loud or angry. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, and undeniable, like a truth that lights up the world at exactly the right moment. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and drop a comment below. Have you ever turned heartbreak into triumph? Or seen someone get the justice they deserved? Tell us about it. If you love real-life stories of betrayal, redemption, and epic payback, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.